Thursday, June 22nd, 2017.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I move we approve the May 25th and June 1st minutes.
Second.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Shenigo?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Mr. Pete?
Okay. I think you've all been getting the emails from CCAO regarding the state budget and the Medicaid Managed Care Organization issue. Again, that's where we stand to lose about $600,000 or more a year in sales tax revenues. So far, essentially, the Senate version of the budget isn't containing anything other than what the governor's originally proposed, which is to make us whole for essentially the last quarter of this year, and then next year we would take the full hit because we're not one of the counties that would get a little relief for a few years, year to three, depending on your county's reliance on that Medicaid sales tax piece. So obviously, they said to contact your legislators. Again, our issue is, that's $600,000 of revenue we'd be losing on just a budget basis. That's roughly about 2% of our budget. However, when you take into account the fact that there are parts of our budget we cannot cut, they're mandated. Just for example, elected officials' salaries and benefits, usually your association fees, sheriffs, FOJ, prosecutors, FOJ, our insurance, utilities, things of that nature. So that can range anywhere, probably 4 to 6, maybe 7, 8%. Factor all that in there.
Dollar-wise, Pete, what do you estimate? What would you think? Ballpark figure.
Well, the numbers that we've gotten from them are around, was around $600,000, and that was from 2015. So, could be up maybe $625,000, something like that.
But it's not in stone, right?
Pretty close.
It's pretty close. I would say it's really close. I would say the odds of us losing that are well above 50%. Just so you know. Tacking that on, I've distributed our latest sales tax numbers. Essentially for the first 6 months out of the year, year over year on the what I call the gross numbers, year over year, it says we're up 3%. However, I always look at this variance piece, which compares the total, the collections year to date to the total that we expect to collect, or did collect the previous year, and those are hovering somewhere between 1.2% and 1.33%, which to me that's a truer measure of where we really stand on the sales tax. So yeah, it's a little bit better than flat, but still relatively flat, in the 1% range.
I think when you've got April and May got to kick in June, I think once we see that with sports force, I think you're going to see, I'm hoping to see a little increase maybe.
Well, I hope so.
Pretty busy out there.
I hope so. I'm thinking this next month, which is April, will be good because that's when Easter was, so you got the Easter break, so it was later than the previous year. However, if you look at the next month, which was May, last year Cedar Point had a new roller coaster, which always bumps things up. If you look at the numbers from 15 and 16, there was a big jump from 15 to 16. Well, without anything big happening over there, there's a really good chance that our number could come in lower than that. So
Kind of leveled off.
yeah, so basically I'm going to say, what I'm essentially saying is one of those months may be better than the next month may be worse. So they'll probably cancel themselves out. So we'll see. What else was I gonna talk about? Shoot, I had my list back on my desk. Talk a little bit about, I had a discussion with one of the board members, and this is kind of an ongoing discussion about our water tap fees. And, I really could probably go to our sewer tap fees. You know, the way they're put together is essentially you have an installation fee, especially on water, because, you know, we install the your meter in the pit and all of that, and make the connection to the line into that meter. So there's obviously an installation fee, and then there's the other couple, processing fee, which isn't a whole lot. I think it's, $25, $30 or something like that. And then there's these two other pieces, which is the equalization fees and the conveyance fees, which actually are, those amount to, again, depending on the size of your meter, but on average, just for like a residential household, that's probably more than 50% of the fee. Now, the conveyance fee, it says basically it's charged for the cost of oversizing water mains, installation of pump stations, water towers, replacement of old pipe with new larger ones, and things like that. So essentially what we're saying is that fee's on there for essentially growing the system, if you will. Which, to be honest with you, I don't think we've really grown. The system there's no need for it to have grown.
Yeah.
Or be growing, without a massive amount of new development, which I hate to say it, but honestly don't see anything massive in the future. Obviously some increments, but I wouldn't say they're massive. Equalization fee, I'm not really, I can't be really sure what the idea for that was.
I think that was the same thing. It was, anti-development fee. That if you put in a new bunch of houses that we're gonna have to eventually build bigger sewer pipes.
Uh-huh.
And it was very common in the 70s. But it's certainly not pro-growth today, is it?
I wouldn't say so.
I think the logic is we want people to buy our water.
Yeah, we
Right.
do. Just as an example, because we have rules for the main district and the rural district. Equalization, it's basically like equalization is, because that's, say in the main district, it's all, got fire protection for hydrants, so that your minimum main line size is 8 inch. Whereas in the B district, it's 4 inch. So
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
yeah, it's 33.
There's no 4-inch
It's like
lines.
$3,300 in the regular district, and it's minimum $1,008 in the rural one. So it's like almost 3 times.
But I don't know what that 4-inch means. It means if you're, it's not tying into a 4 inches if you're adding a 4-inch.
I'm not sure what it is.
It doesn't make any sense. I think what we ought to do is, why don't we set up a committee, Pete? Maybe me and you, and if it's all right with you guys, and we'll sit down with Moyer and Luis, and why don't we relook at all this, at, what makes heads or tails out of, because I read that, and looks like a bunch of gobbledygook to me.
Mhm. I mean,
Yeah, I think we've heard many cases where there's just absurd fees that are being levied for probably,
mhm.
I'm not sure what the reason is, so if you want to look into it, I have no objection to that.
Yeah, I mean, these are the residential numbers. Obviously, when it's something different than residential, it's much larger.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe where the real rub lies.
I don't know. I like I said, I read B. I read A. I don't know who wrote it, but it sure didn't make any sense to me.
It's been in place for a long time.
But every time we get in an argument with somebody, it's always over this, and wait a minute, I'm gonna come in. I always remember back in Great Wolf days when they had $100,000 fee or something like that, and they're like, wait a minute, we're gonna build this, multi-million-dollar investment in your community and buy lots of water from you, and now you're gonna charge me $100,000 to tap into it? I mean, the way it's done in most cities that we build in, Columbus or Cleveland, there's a charge, and the charge is clearly defined on, here's how much it is for 1 inch, here's how much it is for 1.5 inches, here's how much it is, and then there could be a sewer charge too. You can have both, because that puts money back into your sewer. And I can get you copies of some other municipalities, how they do it. Maybe that's where we start.
Maybe.
But not this formula that only, a couple people know how to calculate it. And
I will say this, though, I mean, if we're looking at, say, changing this, and I think the direction we're going is to reduce it, then we're obviously reducing revenues, and if the idea is to incentivize, purchase of more water, then we're gonna have to take a look at that rate as well.
well,
And one goes hand in hand with the other.
agreed. I mean, the first thing we ought to do is let's pull out how much we actually collected last year in these fees. Start with that.
Yeah.
Let's look at equalization, let's look at conveyance, and then let's look at the tap. Let's break that down. Let's have them break it down over the last 3 years, so we could see what the lost revenue is gonna be, and then we'll work backwards from there. That fair?
Yeah.
I think you're gonna find it's not that much.
Yeah, I mean, offhand, I mean, it's gonna be single-digit numbers,
Yeah,
as far as like the water rates, if you
Right.
will, yeah. It's not gonna be earth-shattering, no. Okay, I think that's all I got. Oh, I know, there's one more item I want to talk about. I'm sure you're aware, we have a building over at the fairgrounds, a local government building. A long time ago, we used to take turns with the department heads over the week of fair, going in there and staffing that from like 3 to 6 in the afternoon. We stopped doing that. We've had departments, if they wanted to set up some information, like have handouts and stuff like that available, we're in that building. Really not getting much use anymore. And
how big is it, Pete? It's not very big, is it?
no, it's 15 by 20 maybe, something like that. The issue that's been happening is we've been like leaving the building open like all day, and kids just come in there and hang out and really don't. They're just hanging out to get in the air conditioning or whatever, kind of somewhat trash the place, throw stuff around. And the sheriff's had to chase them out of there over the last several years. So what I'm suggesting is probably that, unless you make a reservation, that you're going to be manning that place is locked up.
So do they have another use for it?
That I do not know.
I know the auditor had some people in there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who the other one was, but they were only in there.
Like JFS was over there maybe for Kids' Day. The nursing home used to go there for like Senior Day,
Free blood pressure.
which I don't even know if they've been doing that in the last couple of years or not.
Remember?
According to Gary, they haven't. So it's kind of what I'm recommending. That
Yeah.
you guys
I don't
okay
know why
with?
we're paying to air condition if nobody's in it.
It kind of was for the elderly, so they had someplace to sit down, cool off. We had water there, that kind of thing. We
Well,
actually
I
had a
think they-
cooler,
I
water
don't think
cooler.
they've got that in their main building though.
Maybe now, yeah, but I
Yeah.
think that was kind of the intention, to have it there for that.
Well,
And
the,
it was
well, the
bad.
idea was for information sharing, like I know we used to have the treasurer's unclaimed funds book out there, but, it would just be sitting there with no one to help you go through it or anything like that.
Handed down county maps.
Yeah. Well, I remember just at my time in the fair, how that has changed. And last year, it was definitely a problem. I mean,
You were in the fair?
no, just going to the fair.
Oh, that maybe.
No, I never had a
I
rabbit.
mean, I can check with the fair board to see if they've got some kind of use for it. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the smarter thing.
They got something they can do with it.
Okay. All right.
We could just maybe have during Fair Week, just put Carolyn over there for all week.
I used to take my minutes over there and do them while we sat there.
Right. I mean, that way, in case somebody had questions, they could talk to you.
Could take care of
I mean,
things.
unless you want us to go back and start staffing it,
No.
afternoons or whatever. We rare,
I think we quit staffing that, what, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago?
something like
Yeah,
that.
It's been a
That
while.
was a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, to have some material in there,
right.
you know, I think almost all the elected officials had something in there. I know the auditor did, the recorder did, Barshman had stuff.
Board of
in there.
Elections did, even though they have their own thing. too.
Yeah,
But
Well,
you could register to vote.
yeah,
If the fair has another use for it, maybe they would give us a 10 by 10 spot, and we could set up a rack and put the brochures and things in there outside, so it's not appealing, because it was just a bunch of kids in there.
or stick it like in the commercial building or something.
Yeah, a rack with the county information, so it's not
sure.
blowing all over the place, and we don't have to man a table. Because I think some of the, Rick Jeffrey went out there, but he might have got his own tent. But having that whole building for that's probably not the greatest use.
Yeah, I don't-
Okay,
Okay.
got some resolutions to read?
Cancel meetings, all Monday meetings in July.
Second.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Shenigal? Mr. Shenigal?
Regional
Yes.
Planning Community Development Block Grant, award to Charles Acres Construction.
Second?
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Shenigal?
Yes.
Authorize county auditor to make interfund transfers.
Second?
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Shenigal?
Yes.
Authorize county auditor to make budget modifications.
Second?
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Shenigal?
Yes.
Authorize payment to a rent house.
Second?
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Shenigal?
Yes.
Authorizing the drawing of warrants and payment of amounts due.
Second?
Contractor order.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Shenigal?
Yes.
Entering into an agreement amended with Majestic Transportation.
Second?
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Shenigal?
Yes.
Entering into an agreement, addendum with the city of Sandusky.
Second?
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Shenigal?
Yes.
Entering into an agreement addendum with Cruising City LLC.
Second?
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Shenigal?
Yes.
I think that's it, Carol.
That's it.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, we have public comment? No? Public comment? Public comment? Going once?
Okay.
Okay.
Motion to recess. in-
Recess into executive session?
Second, sorry.
Second.
Mr. Shenigal?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to rescind the approval of the specifications for the JFS Transportation Services.
So moved. Second?
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mr. Shenigal?
Yes.
And I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan? Mr. Shenigal?
Yes. You're gonna start doing these meetings twice a week?